to assess the needs of the school, the needs of the students, the needs of the teacher. Like, I'll give an example. Oh, I will not give you this example because this example you'll work on it. I was just about to tell you what I wanted. Yeah, but it's because I always have these very many ideas in my mind. So that one we will do it as a class, in groups. So what does your client need? Is it a family? Is it a home where it's an old couple living there? People, you remember when I was telling you last time, you said design a garden for an old people's home. So supposing this house, home you're designing for, the owners are just an old couple, their needs will be totally different from the needs of a young family where they've got kids running all over and that kind of thing. Those needs will be different. So you've got to assess what kind of client you have and what are their needs, what are their desires, because you just can't go and say, oh, I think you need this. And they're busy shaking their heads and saying, no, we don't need that and that kind of thing. So after that, you need to develop a bubble diagram. A bubble diagram helps you to locate where each piece of property or building or whatever it is, probably you're thinking also, which are the private areas in the home that needs to be kept private. Remember, we were saying that landscaping at times is done to shield the private areas, to keep the private areas private. You also need to know which are the public areas, which are the service areas, which are the utility areas, all that. So I'll show you what a bubble diagram is. Then you need to design a landscape plan. Once you've looked at the plan of the buildings, you've done your site analysis, you've evaluated your client, you developed your bubble diagram, then you need to design a landscape plan. And this is on paper, remember? So you're going to draw it by pencil, using a pencil, then color it. You say, this is where I'm going to do this. This is where I'm going to do this kind of plan. This is where I'm going to put this kind of plants that have this color. These plants, I put them here, they have this color. You see, I'm trying to remember the few times that I've gone to buy plants. And I just buy plants. I'm like, okay, could I have that? It looks beautiful. Could I have that? It looks beautiful. And at times, with really no thought, will it fit in the place that I'm putting it on? I honestly, most of the times have no plan. I'm just going to buy plants which I think will fit and everything. But once you draw a plan and you're even putting the color and say, okay, for this area, we'll have blooms of a color pink. Then in these areas, we put blooms of color red, remembering the principles, the landscape design principle, the landscape planning principles. Then put that on paper. So you have your complete drawing, the plan, before you effect it, before it ever comes to be. Then, excuse me, after you do that, I just want to show you the bubble diagram first. So this is the bubble diagram. This is not a plan. For you now, you're saying, okay, so this is the main house. So on this side, there's going to be a garden. This side, there's going to be a garden. Behind the house, probably we'll have the swimming pool. In front of the house, you'll have a lawn on both sides. Then this is going to be the road. Let's see if I can. Yeah, this is going to be the road. So you already have it now on paper. You sort of have a plan. This is where, so to move from this area, coming from this area to that area, you have a garden. Coming from the swimming pool, there's a place in the garden you can sit and enjoy. There's a lawn in front of the house, probably just for aesthetic purposes and that kind of thing. There is a road for access. Maybe this is the main road and that kind of thing. So all those things need to be put in place. So how do you assemble the plan? The base plan. Remember, the base plan is a plan of the house. or the plan of the building. I don't know. Okay, I don't know how many people in Kenya build it, maybe in the urban cities. Okay, I know before I build, I have to draw a plan. I have to have an architect draw a plan. But okay, some people do, some people don't, but actually it's a requirement. And your plan, by the way, it has to be accepted. It has to be, you have to take it to NEMA. So if you're planning to build a house anytime, now or in the future, then just know that you will need to draw a plan, an architect, and the plans are not exactly cheap. Just a minute. Just a minute, I need to attend to something. Yeah, so I'm saying plants are not exactly cheap. You need to pay for them, but it is a requirement. And NEMA actually needs to pass your plan. They need to say it's okay. And this is especially in the urban areas. So by the way, this is part of EIA, I think. So once you do that, so you will need to obtain the architectural drawings of the place and the plan view, the house, if it's a storied house, how are the plans of the floors looking like? Because all this is important in whatever it is you're going to do on the ground, or maybe even on the floors. Then you need to look at it from all dimensions. You need to look at the elevations. You need to look at the contour map of the area, the topography. Now I'm talking about a professional landscape designer. And you've got to look at the building from all angles. Because why? Because all angles matter when it comes to landscape design. I'm wondering, do we have 38 people on? Let me see. Let me confirm something. So come out, Budhi, you have 2 devices on. Kerry, you have to. Yeah, probably that's what's happening. I'm wondering, everybody's in today. Where have the ones who have been missing, where have they been? Yeah, so anyway, let's continue. Yeah, so that I was just elaborating on the base plan, and I think we now know that every corner, every aspect, every angle of that plan is very important for a landscape designer. Because remember, when you're taught to design a landscape, it's around the whole building. It's not just on the front and you forget the back. No, it's all around. So you've got, that's why we say you need a plan, the overview of the whole building. You need the plan, building, the compound, the landscape surrounding it, at times even the buildings are around it. Because remember, okay, most of you probably are not aware, but there's a time in Kenya in the 80s, there's a time, I think it was during Moi's time, Moi's reign. There's this, a Times newspaper. There's a newspaper that used to be called Times. I don't know whether it exists anymore. They wanted to put up a building in Park that would be higher, I think, the highest building in Kenya. And Wangari Maathai said, no, you cannot do that. Once you do that, number one, you take away the sort of the sanctity of Uhuru Park. Secondly, that building is going to block the sun. The people on this other side, the sun will not get there. And it was a vicious fight. But you know what? Finally, she won. And the building was never put up. So one of her key issues was the sun, how the sun would be blocked. You have to look at all those things. What are the buildings around that area? Are they going to block the sun? Yeah, so even looking, from the base plan and the site analysis, how do you maximize also on what you get? So when you're now on the site, you're looking at what is there. There are features that will stay, features that you cannot remove. Some of those features could include vegetation. Maybe there is a tree that you want to protect, you don't want it to go. Maybe there are trees, shrubs, and shrub condition, placement. What are the trees on adjoining property? You may not think it's important to think about what your neighbor has and does that affect you? And I know several times, like a neighbor had to cut their trees because it was affecting the shade patterns of the next door property. And some of these little things can really be a cause of stress between neighbors. Or you've planted a tree near the wall, near the perimeter walls, the half of leaves are on my area. In that area, the leaves are dropping, I have to sweep them, so I don't want that tree there, that kind of thing. So you have to look at all that, yeah? And if you haven't constructed, if you haven't started maybe constructing even the house, by the way, most of the site analysis, most of the landscaping starts taking place when the building begins. So that by the time you're finishing the building, the landscape is already sorted. So if there are any trees that you're planting, you are planting them when you're starting to build, and you're making sure that they are protected during the construction, they remain safe, that you don't allow cement to settle on them and destroy the leaves and that kind of thing. So so you have to think through that. Plant big trees. When do you want to start? You also have to think about rock somewhere in the middle of the compound and you want to spare it, you don't want to remove it. Maybe there's a tree that you want to keep. So as early as that time, then you have to decide, am I keeping this tree or am I removing it? Of course, you have to keep consulting with the person who has given you work, the client. Then you also have to look at, you have to think, what views do I want to preserve or what views do I want to block? If someone is in this compound, what do I want them to see? It could be a distant mountain range that you want anybody in that you do the mountain range will always be in view, maybe in the mornings or in the evening and that kind of thing. If there's a valley below, maybe remember we talked about the contours. Do you want the viewers or the people coming to that property to have a view of that beautiful valley below? Because that enhances the value of that property. And just the fact that someone can sit there and just enjoy those mountains and just enjoy that valley. The other thing is an adjoining golf course. You know, we all know that golf courses look so beautiful. I mean, you almost always want to live near a golf course for aesthetic purposes, especially in just that peaceful thought and this huge, expansive lawns, which is so well taken care of, so manicured and hardly crowded, you see. So yeah, do you want from the place, from the property, do you want people to have such good views? Then, now the concentrated or focus view. What is that particular point that you want to be? Remember when you're talking about the focal point, what do you want people to see? It could be a sculpture. You know, in Kenya, we are not big on sculptures. Hata takuweka ile ya Kimathi, it took a long time But if you go to Europe especially, you just be amazed at the number of sculptures on the streets, and I don't know what's wrong with us in Africa. Maybe we don't value them, but they've been there, and you see them. Some have been there beyond a century, just seated there, and they are so good. They are so good, and you can see this sculpture is going to be there for generations to come. And so once they do their landscape, sculpture is part of that landscaping. So, for example, in a property, which sculptures do you want to maintain? You want them to be the focal point. There could also be a unique tree that you decide, I'm not going to cut this tree, we're not going to cut this tree, but you're going to let it be the focal point. Everybody who comes into this property will notice that tree. It will pull their attention. It could also be maybe some showy flowers, beautiful flowers. What is it anyway that you want to be the focus with that particular? Miss other things, but everybody say, oh, you tell me to go to that place, which has this sculpture, or which is this beautiful unique tree, or which is this bed of showy flowers. Yeah. So, and then of course, there are those views you want to block. You don't want anybody to say this screened out and just kept out. So you can use high plants for that, plants that are very tall. You can also use walls, you can use fences, whatever it is that probably you'll decide as a landscaper to use. And then, of course, you've got to assess. You have to assess when you're in the site analysis, you have to look at the drainage of the land. I always like giving an example of there's this area in Mombasa. This area that watu wa Mombasa wanajua, acha niwaulize. What is this area, especially people from the coast, that really drains? Not really drains, it really floods. After Bamburi, what's the name of that area? Yusuf, you should know it. Yusuf Omar or Omar, you guys should know this place. The name is just escaping my mind. Do you know it? It has very nice houses just after. Wacha hawa watu wa coast wako wapi? Omar, where are you? I can see your name. Where are you yourself? Are you there? Okay, Omar he just left his device on and took off. Okay. Yusuf Omar, are you in?
Yes, I'm in.
Okay, tell me, after you leave Bamburi, there's this place which was really nice house. I think many people have bought land in those areas. I think that area was wetland. So when it rains, when the heavy rains come, it really floods.
You mean fisheries?
No. Bamburi, you know Bamburi in whatever. On your way
Yes.
to
Mtwapa.
when you're using this other road to Bamburi, not the outside road, not the main road, when you get in through, not Kisauni. After Bamburi, there's this other estate. It starts with K.
Huh? Vescon.
No. Yeah?
Kazandani.
There's another name here. It's
Utange.
Huko ni mbali sana. You know, in Bamburi where the matatu stand.
Yes.
Then you proceed, then there's like a road you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Kiembeni.
Yeah. Yes, I'm talking about that's the place. If you look at Kiembeni, it's a really nice area. But once it rains, once it really rains, and with all those it floods. I mean, it can really be devastating when you access your house and from the car to the house, you're not sure how you're going to get in there just because of the flooding. So when you're doing landscaping, those are some of the things you have to look at. Fine. Is it a flood-prone area? Yes. How do you get rid of that water? So this is work of landscaping now. Floods don't linger. The flood waters are drained. So the site, you look around at what's around flood waters so that you can also safeguard the property that you're landscaping. I know some people have tried to build walls, but that really weakens the walls. What to think about proper access to those places. Of course, now when you start thinking about the traffic, you have to think about the city council or county council ordinances. What does the council say? What are the ordinances or what are the rules? What does the legislation say? Then one of the purposes of landscaping is to block the noise. If you have trees in an area or plants, they tend to block noise. And you've got to be able to identify the distractions as a landscape designer. Because let me tell you, noise can make you leave a place. Yes, if you are living, like I always wonder, there are these apartments near areas. I think they're called Likoni Towers and everything. I always look at those apartments and I'm always like, I would rather live in a village than live in those apartments. Why? They are beautiful, very, very beautiful, very nice. But I just hate the location. That's where you get all the noise from the cars, from the matatus, from the people, all the time. And I'm like, how do you live in such a place? Really, 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 how do you live in such a place? And this is one of the things that actually, even when you're going to look for property, and you will, Mungu atawabariki, you finish and you get your places. These are some of the things that people look at. How is this a peaceful neighborhood? Is this a quiet place? Is this a place where the matatus ply 24/7? Now tuk-tuks, okay, tuk-tuks have worsened the situation. I think they've worsened the situation. So these are some of the things now as a landscape designer you want to look at. And where are the noises coming from? Is it from the vehicles? Is it from the factories? Maybe there's a mill throughout, maybe 24/7. It's always making noise and that kind of thing. In fact, I don't think any of these, let's say like mills, should be allowed in places where people also live. Then you've got to plot the direction and distance of the source of noise. How far is it? At times you have anybody who has passed by, okay, I don't know about Western, but I know the Kisco Sugar Company. If you pass there, the times that they are milling, that stench, really, you don't want to live anywhere near there. Really, you don't want to live anywhere near there. Of course, these are some of the EIA issues that should be addressed when you're putting up such factories. I think they have to be raised during the EIA. But having said that, if the factory was built and your house was already existing, and those guys start milling, you start wondering, am I in the right place? Or should I just move? Okay, so you should also look at utility placement. And what are these? We're talking about electricity poles. Do you want poles? Do you want underground? Of course, in Kenya, we know it's poles. If you want power, it has to be poles. Okay. You've got to locate all these things, the electrical meters, the air conditioning, all those things, and all those powered things. All of them are part of the landscape design. Where do you want your septic tanks? Because it's part of the landscape design. Where do you want them? How do you want thing? Then you've got to think about easements or setback lines. Primary architectural features of the house, what are they? What are the shape of the windows? Style of the windows. So I think you're starting to see landscaping is much more than just planting flowers and trees. It goes so much with how the house looks like. What can you repeat in the landscape? Does the shape of the window influence the plant that you're going to plant, in the style and that kind of thing? Okay, now here is the one, house orientation. How is the house facing? In the UK, because at times you go to a place that's almost, I realized for them, the direction of the sun is so important. So important. Every architecture have to think about that, because the sun is so scarce in those areas, such that when it comes, you want the sun coming through in the right rooms, and you also want to be able to enjoy the sun yourself. Okay, so you have to think about your sitting room. What is its orientation? What about the bedrooms? Where do you want the most sun? Should it come? And that kind of thing. Of course, for us, we'll be thinking, what about shade? For example, us in Mombasa, what about shade? What about wind also? How do I get very good, good wind and make sure it comes and irrigates my house and that kind of thing? In the UK, because this is whatever is from the UK, the southeastern exposure is the most comfortable spot year round. It's warmer. In the western slopes, the hot in summer and cold in winter. So I think for us, coming to think about it, many times you don't you don't think, oh, probably it's because you have plenty of sun. But I have also noted something in the estate, or in all these buildings that people are putting up. Of course, most of them unplanned, and they are putting up buildings where you put up a building where you have a block of what do I call them? You've got a block of on this side, and a few meters away, there's another block of apartments facing them, you see. And you can even see, without being told, you can already see trouble. You can see there is this house or this block that hardly receives the. It's always cold. Most of those rooms are mostly going to be moldy because they hardly ever get the sun. They're going to be cold. Whereas the other rooms, maybe they get a good amount of sunshine. And the problem is one block is actually blocking the other block from getting sunshine. Okay, so the orientation of your building is very, very important. Then, of course, the soil conditions. This will determine the selection and placement of your plants. Then the soil pH, the nutrient, and all those things that go with plants. I don't know whether you've realized that for most people, when they're doing proper landscaping, they then have to transplant, to bring in topsoil from elsewhere, just maybe because whatever they have in the area is not good enough. So most people prefer to bring in topsoil of course, you buy it, it's not free, and you come and add it to your land. You can also, of course, use that soil for landscaping. maybe elevating a place or filling in a valley or a place which is a bit dented and that kind of thing. Now, of course, I say you have to think about the seasonal wind patterns or the prevailing winds of that area. You know, like at the coast, there are times it is so windy, especially if you're living anywhere near the sea. At times it's so windy. So when you're building, how are you orienting your houses? Are you planning to create some wind breaks so that even if it's so windy, you don't get that? We call it drought, D-R-A-U-G-H-T. You don't get that drought, which is maybe devastating or is going to be destructive. So probably you want to plant trees that will act as windbreaks. And yeah, you have to think about the plants and structures on the property or adjacent property. Then, of course, there is a microclimate of the area. These conditions in an isolated spot may differ considerably from the conditions in another area of the landscape. I always like giving an example of Chiromo campus in Nairobi University. If you are from the city, of course, you just walk from town. Or if campus, those of you who are familiar with Nairobi University, if you walk from main campus, the walk will take you like around 20 to 30 minutes. So probably at the same weather, within 30 minutes, you live in Nairobi University main campus, sweating. We're taking on a typical holiday, it's sweating. And you walk all the way to Chiromo. The moment you start getting into Chiromo campus, the microclimate just changes. It becomes so cool. It becomes so easy to walk. And you're like, what just changed? It's just the microclimate. If you look at where main campus is, it is good, but there are no trees around. Okay, go into Chiromo. You've got that river, the Chiromo River. You've got all these huge trees that surround the place, and the microclimate changes so drastically. You just notice, oh, am I still 20 minutes away from main campus? So the microclimate is very important, and you may want to create a microclimate in your landscape, especially if you have a big land where you've got to have maybe a wooded area or a place with many plants that just influence that little climate, maybe for a place for relaxation and that other kind of thing. Of course, then we have others which you don't have here, snow removal or pile up, yosasi here too. Now, for the bubble diagram, I showed you a picture up there, but in this, you have with the bubble diagram, once you draw, you have to establish the public areas, private areas, the utility area, the play area. If you have, when you go back to the issue of client consultation, if it's a family that has children, then automatically, and even pets, for example, then you'll know that such a family will need huge area for just playing around, for kids running up and down and that kind of thing. So you can't fill up the whole area with things. You've got to give establishment, so you've got to give allowance for that, a place where they can kick ball, they can run around and that kind of thing. So that has to be very, very thoughtful. If it's older people who are not interested in a play area, probably they need to sit, unless maybe they need a play area for their grandchildren if they come there often. So mostly then you're told to slow down and think broadly or generally, make creative designs, think of alternatives, go beyond any preconceived notions or ideas. This is where your creativity comes in, okay? And there are people who are so good at this. They are so gifted. And maybe some of you are seated there and probably this is your future career. You've got what it takes to be a good landscape designer. So it calls for a lot of creativity. And creativity means going beyond any preconceived notion or idea, going beyond it and coming up with your own art, your own design. And of course, you're following the principles and that kind of thing. And within no time, everybody will want you to do landscape design for you. I'm hoping I have inspired you enough. But mtaenda mseme hakuna kazi iko. Wafanyikazi ndio hakuna. Okay. Then of course, if for the public area, we say when we talked about the bubble diagram, it's the public area, private area, and play area. So when you look at the public area, this is where everybody should see. This is probably the place where you want to, everybody should see. It puts the house into an attractive setting. It enhances the architecture, the building itself. Remember what we said about landscaping adding value? So if you've got a very nice building and you've got very good landscaping, already that enhances the architecture of the building. It makes the building look beautiful. Then it helps. This is public areas. This is where you want the focus of the viewer to be. You want to draw the attention. And of course, recognizing the value of the home. So you see why people put in a lot of money. Remember, actually abroad, apart from here, as different from here, this is what people do. When people are young, maybe it's a young couple, they would mostly go. So this is what they do, because I've learned this from my friends. They would look for a home to buy, especially those who have money or they want to take a mortgage. They look for a home to buy, and the home would largely be, depending on the number of children they want to have, it will be a large home, and maybe to accommodate parents and kids, and maybe a guest room and that kind of thing. So that's a huge house. Probably, of course, the landscaping, which has the landscaping that can accommodate children, or maybe they'll change the landscaping. So what happens? The nest, mostly what would happen, they would sell the big house and buy a smaller house. Now for the couple, of course, there's still some room where the kids can still come. So for most of them, maybe a smaller house which they can maintain. It's easy for them to clean. It's easy for them to keep the garden and that kind of thing. So that is what most of them do. But here, we're opposite. And of course, we don't blame our parents, or struggling for most parents to bring up your kids, the school fees issues, all those things that demand your attention. And you have hardly any money to spare to come up with a decent home. So what happens, and probably this is now normally a mistake, by the time maybe the kids are done with school, and the parents now have some little cash to spare and they want to build a house, they end up building a very, very big house. And my question always is, who is going to live in that house? The kids have left. Probably they won't even settle anywhere near that area. They will only come to visit. Okay. And for me, I think mine, okay, I know it goes against the grain of most Kenyans. I just set up a little house, a small cozy house for the two of you, maybe a bedroom or two for guests. And that's it. The kids have left, they've got their own homes. So why do you need that huge house? So it's always good to have that in mind. And so this recognizing the value of the home, is that the value of the home probably you'll be able to resell your home if it's to another family. And for you, when you're going to buy, probably now when you grow old, you'll be able to buy a house that you think is good value and you give you good utility for your different ages. Then, of course, you've got to identify and provide necessary access to the point of entry. This is where you need walkways. How do you front walk to the door? What do you need? Where is the desk parking? Easy access, no complicated, and that kind of thing. And it also includes the lawns. The lawn is simply that grass, which is normally very beautiful. The foundation plants, the walkways, the drives, the parking. I should not include cheap plastic animals. So for heaven's sake, remove those plastic animals. Okay, I haven't seen them here, but I saw them abroad so many times. There's a plastic animal in the middle of the garden. But it doesn't include also the recreation equipment, the play equipment, the swimming pools and everything. No, that does not include that. So what about the private areas? So the private areas are basically an outside extension of the private living area inside the home. Maybe it's at the back of the whatever in the screen. You want it, you don't want prying eyes, you don't want anybody passing through the road to see, or you don't want the neighbors to see. So it's just that nice place where maybe it's just a private place for the family, an extension of the private area where you can have your tea, you can have your lunch outside. So maybe you want to make plans to protect it or put up a fence. Maybe you need open spaces for games. It could be anything. It could be a deck. This is a patio. For us, we call it the veranda, or an open lawn. So what plants do you want to put there, for example, that will make the view attractive and also comfortable? And in this private area, it could also include a swimming pool. Maybe you have some athletic facilities, if it's an athletic family, a barbecue area, picnic facilities, all those things that you need to put up. Yeah, I know most of these things are very new to us, but you're the new generation now. So these are some of the things you should start thinking about. Maybe some of the things that you should now know when you're building your house. So now what about the utility area? What about, remember all this is part of the bubble diagram. This is the service or the work area. These are the smallest spaces possible, but they're still functional. You should screen them from private areas so that they do not interfere. You should locate them on the driveway side of your yard or access, may have 2 or more locations. And this will include the clothesline, where you hang your clothes, the compost bin, where you compost all your organic rubbish. Maybe you have, that's where your firewood is. You may wonder, why do you need firewood? In abroad, they light fires during winter. Gas fires, but they're expensive. Firewood is good because it's renewable. Maybe this is also where you have your fuel tanks, the generators, the garbage containers, the garden supplies and storage, the greenhouse, the pet facilities, the tool storage, the utility buildings, vegetable gardens. Oh, those are utility areas. You need to screen them from the rest of the areas. But of course, we know that the play area may or may not be private. And why is that? Because you need to know if the kids are playing outside there, you need it should be easy to access from the rear entry door. So you should have your grass there. You can put your swings, your slides, your sandbox, whatever it is that you want to put in the play area. So when you're designing, doing landscape design, you know, this is where to put the swings and the slides and all the shade trees. That's another example of a bubble diagram. Let's look at this different one. So you see for this one, for example, you've got the play area on this side. All that area will be the play area. Then you see here, you've got the privacy barrier. So depending on what you all around, you can see, you want to to see in this, you can decide, do I want to put a fence? Do I want to put plants? Whatever it is that you want to use. Okay. Then if you look at this, there's an entry feature, and this is sense of animals. This is someone maybe who has animals, maybe cats or pets, and they want an entry for them. There's the walking corridor over here. I'm trying to see for any other interesting feature. And this is where, in this area, it includes the fireplace, the kitchen, what a feature. I think this is part of the house and that kind of thing. So, yeah, this one it's a bit unclear for me, but yeah, it gives an example of how to make your bubble diagram before you start your landscaping. Now, then you've got the final design plan, the form and composition. Form composition or relationship of basic shapes so as to produce a naturally and logically connected image. Detailed plans for planting and constructions will show you the sizes, locations, and quantity of plants and materials. Then you've got, when you're doing all this, the concept is having an outdoor room. So this, an outdoor wall is important. And what this wall will do, it will define the limits or size of outdoor room. It is also show or prevent movement in a certain directions, probably because you've put a barrier or a wall. It should not be placed in the middle of the areas, but in the sides instead. So put your walls, the outdoor walls on the sides. And the materials to use should include shrubs, small trees, ground covers, flower fencing, masonry. Masonry is like making a wall and that kind of thing. Now, I'm thinking.
Has designing the perfect...
Can you see my screen?
We are not seeing it.
Can you see it?
No.
Can you see? No.
Yard got you stumped? We'll show you some tips to help you develop a land...
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Landscape plan to make your property the talk of the neighborhood. A good starting point is to draw a plan of your yard. On a summer day, how about a garden? Make your wish list of current and future goals. Now start adding your goals to the plan. One way to start is to work big to small, adding the largest items to the plan first, such as a patio, deck, or pergola. Then fill in around them. Of course, keep in mind your budget and short-term goals. Just as you have a style when decorating your home's interior, use style outdoors to keep the entire property cohesive. Look to your house exterior for design inspiration. A traditional house works well with a variety of landscape plans, while a modern dwelling does best with clean lines and simple plantings such as ornamental grasses. Now let's talk about some different ideas for your plan. Plants are definitely one of the most important parts of your landscape and one of the easiest ways to define a new look. Beds with clean lines define areas and points of interest, while curves tend to look more natural. Again, think of using plants as you would decorate your house. Pick just a few colors that work together, or at least avoid lots of variation in small areas. But feel free to mix up texture and size. Layer the heights in your beds, tallest in the back, smallest up front. Keep in mind how tall the plant will be when it's mature so it doesn't grow to block a window. Here's a tip. When selecting plants, know that perennials grow back every season, while annuals will need to be planted each year. Another tip. Plantings tend to look best when they're in odd numbers. Now, along the house, consider using a bush or wider plant to soften the corners. However, keep large plants a few feet from the foundation to prevent damage from roots. If privacy is a priority, consider planting hedges as a fence, or build a traditional fence. Different styles are available to fit your preference. Just check your local codes before you install. If your property has a hill, planting on the slope is a possibility. Or you can use small retaining walls of various levels to define different points of interest. Next, think about pathways to get to the different points of interest in your yard. Solid concrete or pavers are more formal and offer defined direction. Crushed gravel is a softer alternative, and stepping stones give a natural feel to the land. Just be sure to space them as someone would step, and use a landing every few stones to create an opportunity to stop and enjoy the view. A great way to add tranquility and a touch of nature is by adding a water feature. A small pond installation not only looks nice, it is perfect for plants and fish. To add relaxing sounds and help mask noise, try a fountain. A statue or tabletop fountain is a nice option for small spaces. As your landscape comes together, consider highlighting the different areas with landscape lighting. Uplights or spotlights for trees, floodlights for beds, and path lights illuminate a landscape for nighttime enjoyment. Of course, these design principles can be used in your backyard, but also your front yard and your side yard. However, keep maintenance in mind and how much time you'll want to spend taking care of your yard. Now that you have your plan ready, head into your local Lowe's to find out which plants and flowers grow best in your area. And remember, the best landscaping tip of all is to do what makes you happy, and you'll have the perfect outdoor space to enjoy.
Yeah, so I think that was a quick look at and they've mentioned some of the things that we've talked about. I want to show you another video of landscaping for different kinds of buildings. If you notice, the architecture that we have today is slightly different from yesterday's or the yesteryear's architecture. That's what we're calling the modern architecture. And then we've got the traditional architecture. So the next video, we'll be looking at how do you landscape a modern architecture. So a modern landscape design. And I've noticed that when we come to watching videos, some people just disappear. I wonder where they go to, because this is part of learning. So don't ignore the videos and say, I'm coming to watch later. At times that later never comes. So make the most out of it. Can you see my
Good
screen?
grammar and spelling are important. But if you want to write essays that inspire, messages that forge brighter connections.
Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you have an idea of what modern landscaping is. I want to show you the traditional one, and I want you to tell me what differences you notice. So let me upload the one for the traditional design. So can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the traditional design, traditional landscape design. Is everyone in? Hello? Yeah,
We are in.
I got, I don't know what. I'm sure you have noted. So has anybody noticed a difference between those? Of course, if you look at most buildings that we have today, are quite modern architecture, what you're calling the modern architecture, and you realize, I'm sure you saw them, and you realize that these buildings require a different kind of landscaping. And I'm sure you've seen the landscaping. So what I want to hear from you, notice the difference. Has anybody, just by looking, have you noticed a difference that you thought, okay, fine, I think I see something different here? Is there anyone who has noticed a difference between the two kinds? The first one was the modern, the second one is the traditional. Okay, you want me to call your names? I'm always happy to do that. And you saw?
Yes, I'm in, madam.
You disappeared, yeah?
No,
See,
I've been in. Yeah.
let me see. I noted all the people who disappeared. I'll just see when you leave. Anyway, maybe it was okay. Anyway, no problem. Tell her, what did you notice any difference between the two kinds of architecture?
Yes, like
Yeah. Give us one difference so that we give them a chance for the others to say something.
okay, in the modern architecture, there was no, like, the trees or the plants were little as compared
Speak
to.
a bit loudly, please.
Okay, I'm saying in
Yeah.
the modern architecture, there was no a lot of plants. It was just simple, like, yeah, it was very simple compared to the old version where we had a lot of different kinds of flowers and trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anyoso. So can somebody else volunteer? I don't want to call out names. Can somebody else just put up your hand and tell us something you noticed? I like it when students volunteer, and if you are watching that is and you are not doing other things. What did you notice?
What I noticed is with them the landscape, so they are concentrating on pavements that are, but for the traditional one, they are using different colors of flowers. They are also using curved pavements to make it more natural.
Great. I'm glad you saw that. Thank you, Esther. Somebody else who's noticed, especially when when it comes to lines, what have you noticed about the modern architecture? So not modern architecture, but modern landscaping. What have you noticed? Okeri? Okeri Nyamoita, go ahead. Your hand is up. Okeri Nyamoita, your hand is up. Go ahead. Okay. So probably she can.
Hello.
Yes.
Was,
Yes. And so let's hear from somebody else. You've already contributed. I want to hear from Jacinta Tenya, if she's in.
I'm already very.
Sorry?
I'm using a new
Okay,
microphone.
fine. Go ahead.
Okay. In modern landscaping, most of the lines are very straight, but with a traditional one, the lines are curved.
Okay, okay, yeah. So, and so the straight ones, the straight lines gives you a sense of formality. It's so formal. And even the person who talked about color, like in the modern, you get a lot of green plants, just green plants all over. It could be grasses, it could be plants, maybe grown in everything. The lines look so perfect, so well arranged, so straight, you see. And it just gives you that feeling, oh, this is a very, very formal place. So I hope now you can see how those principles speak into how the principles already now speak to the already at they speak to you even before you know. You're like, okay, probably this is a very formal place. You can, there's something you couldn't notice in the formal, in those formal areas. So go ahead. So what do you think those places are used for, especially the formal landscaping? So I want to hear from someone else. Anybody who wants to put up their hand? Fabian Nyakundi? Is Fabian in? Fabian is never in. Adua Wakahiga?
Yes.
Fabian. So tell me, you see, when I ask a question, call your name and you don't respond now, the question disappears. But tell me, what the modern landscaping, what does it give you a feeling of? And what kind of areas would be suitable for that kind of landscaping?
Modern landscape in urban areas mostly.
No, you're not getting me. You're not getting me. Think about what we talked about. Think about the client preference. Where would you expect that kind of landscaping? What kind of setting? Fabian, do you want to give it another go? Okay, Fabian has given up. Hamisi, where are you? Hamisi? You know, there's something I normally don't understand. Do you people attend lectures or you just put your phones there and you disappear? Why do I have to call like 5 times before someone just responds? Where is Hamisi, for example? No, the Agadua Kahiga, nowhere to be found. And yet they're in class, it's recorded. You are in, where are you? I called you your name before.
I heard Fabian talking.
Eh? Hukuskia?
I was about to talk, then Fabian started talking.
Okay, okay, fine, no problem. Go ahead now and answer this one. What kind of setting would that kind of modern landscaping suit?
I don't know.
You don't know. Were you in the lecture from the beginning?
Yeah.
Go back to the principle, to the issue of client preference.
Okay.
What kind of client would request that kind of landscaping?
Maybe an old couple.
Oh, no, Fabian. No, Katua Kahiga, no, Fabian Sasa. Who has an idea? And I'm going to give you a hint. Okay, Kadua, maybe you could mute. I'm giving you an idea. Think of a young couple with kids. Would that formal kind of landscaping suit them? Let me play the video again because I now want you to think and look properly. I want it because I'm not going to let go of, I'm not letting you go get away with this. You've got to know. So I'm putting up the video again shortly. Just a minute, there's some sound. I want you to look at that design. That design is good. Tell me, who is likely to be living in such an area? Joseph Mwendwa. Joseph Mwendwa, are you in?
Yes, I mean.
Who do you think would be living in such a house?
Well, a person living in such a house is a person maybe needing peace, or maybe they're retired, because I don't expect a youth to be living in such a place.
Yeah, yeah. So you can almost imagine a couple with small kids would not choose such a place. It's so formal, it's so neat and nice. And they'll be like, whoever keeps that garden just wants it to look very, very nice and everything in place and that kind of thing. Okay, so that's what I want you to look at when you're looking at these designs. Most of them are so formal, so office-like, so grown-up-ish. Nobody playing around, pulling out the grasses and go back for lecture. as you can notice, as you have noticed and realized, that most of these kind of landscape, it's nice, it's too neat, it's so precise, and you almost do not imagine it being a good place for kids. It's very good for grown-ups. It's good, really good for grown-ups. But you also realize that the variety of even what is planted is so low, very little color that is involved. Okay, and so that makes it very not very good for families. So yeah, so you realize that the client preference is so important in guiding how you are going to landscape this area. I also want you to notice something about the houses. Notice something about the houses. The houses are mostly modern architecture also. Okay, you know, seeing those houses where you used to build with bricks and everything. Everything is so neat and nice in the buildings also. So that also goes with the kind of architecture. It's all tiles, straight lines. Most of these grass is what you call ornamental grass. So the grass that behaves, sio ile inakuwa huko up country, and you know, it's so trained. It knows how long to grow, how far to grow. It's so well manicured. And of course, this kind of whatever is also very high maintenance, so to speak. So let's compare that with the traditional, sort of traditional landscaping. So just a minute, I wrote that the video. And I want you to notice something that you are seeing here that you are not seeing. Apart from the colorful plant, there's something else that you could not see in the earlier video that you can actually see in this video. Okay, here goes. I want you to notice something that we could not see in the other video. So tell me, what do you notice in this? Of course, the way I've stopped, it's so lovely, it's so beautiful. What do you notice that you could not notice, you could not see in the previous video? Joy Alice. Joy Alice. Previous one.
In this video, there are a lot of flowers in the homestead, and there are also, I think the main difference is the flowers.
Okay, so Joy Alice, the main difference is the flowers. Thank you. Somebody else? What are you seeing in this
Flowers are
video? There?
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
the flowers in this video are brightly colored
Yeah.
as compared to the other video, and also the pathways. I think in the current video, there is a round or circular pathway, but in the other video we had a linear such a thing.
Okay, the other one was the straight line, so formal. In this one, we can see curves, which is natural, which is good. Thank you, Derek. Somebody else, something different you've noticed? Am I the only one who has noticed? Samanyale says the lights are placed along the flower paths in Corporation Hotel. That's okay. Even in the other ones, there were lights. But there's something else, something so significant that we are seeing in this one that we were not seeing in the other one. Come on, think.
Madam, I think I saw.
Sorry?
I saw like specification of the kind of flowers, or let's say categorization based. Flowers of different colors would not be put at the same within the same place, like these other one, the traditional one, like flowers of different colors which are placed within the same kind of setting, so it makes
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. The flowers, the setting, that's okay. Something so major.
In the other video, we couldn't see large stones and large gravel, but in this traditional.
That's it. Stones, gravel, and soil. In the first video, that one was, especially soil, was completely absent. But in the second one, we can connect with nature. We can see mulch. There are places where they've mulched the plants, places where they put gravel on top, places where they've used rocks, natural things. And even the grass looks natural. The other one, I won't be shocked if it's plastic grass, like the one we have in Mombasa. I'm saying maybe it's just ornamental grass. So from your opinion now, which one is more suited for a family? What kind of landscaping is more suited for a family? This one, the traditional one, or the modern one? Kamaumbudia. Kamaumbudia.
Oh, yes.
Come on, tell us. Which one is most suited for a family?
I think the natural one.
And I remember you're not saying the other one is not natural. It's just that it doesn't look natural. So between the two, which one do you think is suited for the family? Anybody else come out say this other one, the traditional one? Who else has a different view? And think of yourself, where would you want to bring up your family? Do you want to bring up your children in that very clean place where you don't touch soil and that kind of thing? Yeah, some people want that. Who thinks that that's where they would like to raise their kids, their family for that matter? Malevi Kitome. Oh, he has just left when I was just asking him. How nice. Louis Muema. Louis Muema.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, so where, between the two kinds of places, where would you want to bring up your children?
Yes, so
Okay, we can't hear you. Louis Mwema. Okay, just mute your microphone. We can't hear you.
Yes, I think I would like to raise.
Carry on, Louis. And I hope. No.
Yes, I'm saying I would like to raise a family where there is a beautiful scenery.
No, I'm
where
saying between the
things are
two, the
divided,
traditional and the modern architecture. Not architecture, but
like in this
landscaping.
scenery which is shown in this picture.
Sorry?
Yeah, the modern landscape. I would prefer the modern landscape.
That's what you choose. Okay, thank you. Zevula Gube. Zivula yuko?
Yes, madam.
Aya,
Yes,
tell us, where do you think is the best place to raise a family, or what kind of landscaping would you think is good for a family?
I think I'll choose the modern one.
You'd go for the modern one. Why? And please speak up. We can't hear you clearly. Give us reasons. And please speak up. You're a bit far from your mic.
I think we are moving from the old ones going to the modernity. So choosing the old version will be like old fashioned.
Okay, Zugula, I think he needs the modern one.
Am I the only one who's not getting?
Kenga Nyevu, are you in?
Yes, madam.
Okay, tell us, what's your view?
The traditional.
Why?
It's much more comfortable. The modern is sterile in a way.
Okay, the modern is sterile, and is that good?
For younger people, yes. But
Why?
I wouldn't say it for a family.
So for a family, okay, this is what I think. Thank you, Kenga. This is what I think. For children need to be in touch with nature. They need to touch soil, actually. In kids need to play on soil. They need to touch sand. They need to get their hands and feet dirty, because this is part of nature, and this is part of building their immunity. If you grow up your kids in very sterile conditions, then you just prepare for trouble, because their immunity will be so low. Actually, one of the many reasons why the scientists think Africa has not been so hit hard by COVID, one of the reasons they've been saying, oh, those people live in dirty places, they eat dirty food, they drink dirty water, probably their immunity is just so strong as compared to them where most of the places are pristine, they're always washing their hands, they're always keeping clean, sterilizing, sanitizing, and all that kind of thing. So they think their immunity actually has gone down naturally. And we know for a fact that even when kids eat dirt, it's part of immunity building. Yeah, well, I'm not saying that, yeah, that's when you get kids, you take them to eat that. But for me, I think I would like my children to grow up in a natural place where they are touching soil, they're stepping on soil, they're touching on they're stepping on real grass, not on tiles outside, and they can play. And I think also, part of it also, most of the people probably who are living in if you think of a city like Dubai and so many other modern cities where people are living in buildings 40 stories up. That's where your apartment is. So every day you're coming down with an elevator and going back. Okay, personally, for me, that's a no. But that is what people have to live in Japan. That's in China, in Dubai. That's where people live. Yeah. That's where your apartment is. Every day you're up and down that apartment. The offices, the same kind of thing. And so what has happened actually, it's been realized that people have more and more gotten disconnected with nature. And now what is happening? And okay, put in mind also you are always in your shoes. So once you get to your apartment, you remove your shoes, maybe you're stepping on tiles and carpet and everything, that's okay, you keep clean, but you're missing out on nature. We are more electrical than the body makeup of human beings. And what happens over the days, we accumulate what we call oxidative stress. And the only way to get rid of this oxidative stress is to step. The earth is negatively charged. So once we walk bare feet on soil, on grass, that stress just is sucked out. It's neutralized. Okay. That's why even in other countries now, people are having sessions where they're walking bare feet on soil, on wet grass in the beach. Just kick out your shoes and walk and just get that stress out. So whereas the modern whatever looks so good and so progressive, we are missing out. It's cutting us out from nature. We are getting so disconnected from nature. And there are consequences to that. We are always feeling fatigued. Because we are collecting all this oxidative stress. We're spending time in front of our computers. We're spending time with our phones. We're spending time in electrical buildings, and they're all building up oxidative stress in us. And because of that, people are suffering so many problems. In terms of what you need to do is just get in touch with nature, remove your shoes, walk on soil, walk on grass, walk on the beach, and that stress just sort of dissipates. So there's quite a big debate on that, but I think for me, at any one given time, I choose the natural to the modern. I'm not saying the modern is bad. But if you say you choose the modern, then give your reasons. If you say you choose the traditional, then also support it, facts and reasons, and that kind of thing. Okay, so let's finish up. So we already did the having an outdoor wall. It should not be placed in the middle of areas, but on the sides. Materials to use as walls include shrubs, small trees, ground covers, etc. Then the floor, what do you put on the ground? So this provides the surface, and the materials would include grass, ground cover, sand, gravel, as we have seen, or water. You can have a small pond, man-made pond. It could also be bricks, it could be concrete, it could be a patio box, whatever, tiles, whatever. Then the ceiling, what do you put on the ceiling on top? You can define the upper limits of the outdoor room. Remember, this is a room outside the main house. You may offer it physical protection, and that kind of thing. So this is up to you to decide how you want to do it. Then from there, of course, now we come to the plants. Now the foundation plantings, you want to look at the main entrance and you want to put noticeable plants. Some people, like I've realized at the coast, this one plant is called the traveler's palm. It's huge, but it's also so beautiful. So I realized that most people like to plant that on right at the entrance of their houses. It's so really nice. And of course, it should complement the architectural style of your house. You should also be able to break long continuous lines of the house. Select all those plants, using, now these are the principles we were learning about. So use the principles we talked about to in here. The mistakes you should avoid. And mistakes actually means you are not following the landscape design principles. One of them is the overgrown effect. For roof lines or windows, there are some plants, if you plant them, they're even going to cover the windows. Avoid them. There are plants also which make the room look so small. You remember when we were looking at scale and where you plant 2 big trees next to the house, it makes the house look so small. So you want to avoid that. You also want to avoid the crowded effect. So a crowded effect will create confusion. Plants maybe which are planted too close at the time of planting, they give instant fullness, but plants lose their identity over time. You want each plant to still stand out in its own quality. So you don't want to crowd it. You don't want some plants. Then there's also the clip effect, plants getting a regular haircut, which are maintained with a very smooth edge. So avoid that. This makes the plants lose unique growth habits. So when you're cutting, when you're trimming your plants, avoid the clean haircut. And this mostly landscaping designs where everything is so clean cut. So make it look natural. Avoid the unbalanced effect when too many plants or larger plants occur on one side at the end of the planting. So it makes the whole thing look tilted. So balance it. So if you have some plants on this side or larger plants, make sure the other side also has that kind of plants. Then there's also the toy soldier effect. Landscape uses one species of landscape plants, often around, which are spaced equally with noticeable gaps between plants. It is monotonous, it's boring, and it lacks creativity. So avoid that. Why I think it's the soldier effect, because soldiers look so alike in their uniform, maybe in their hiders. You can hardly tell one from the other, so avoid that. Then there's also the hedge effect, where plants are trimmed to continuous box shape. It lacks variety and gives foundation, no relief from horizontal light. This hedge effect, you find it mostly in the formal settings. This one you won't avoid it in the formal settings. Let me see whether I can, I put this video here on the mistakes, because I think we're just about to finish. Let me see whether we can have it. Just see it.
Okay, class, who would like to do problem 3 on the...
board.
Please don't be me. Don't be me.
I know, Miss
Einstein.
Let's give someone else.
Many people would like to have their garden area professionally landscaped to make maximum use of space and create a beautiful and practical outdoor area. But landscaping costs quite a bit, and so they decide to do it themselves in order to prevent a budget blowout. This may not be as easy as it sounds. Landscaping can be fraught with problems that seem insurmountable to the amateur. The keen gardener handyman may think that a project looks quite easy on the surface, but what about the hidden aspects such as foundation work and preparation? So what are some of the most common decisions that must be made and hold-ups? Choose an appropriate and do able. Don't underestimate landscaping costs. Landscaping can certainly be patient, then he should be realistic in setting goals. There are only so many hours in the day and energy dissipate. Skills levels and physical strength should also be taken into consideration, as well as the time factor. If an expert has to be called in to fix mistakes, it will cost much more than it would have to hire expert help to start with. Consider family needs. Filling up the garden space with plants and shrubs may be less than ideal if there is a young family who needs space to run and play games. Leaving a clear lawn area will ensure that children and pets have room to play, and parents can entertain friends with a barbecue, if that is part of the lifestyle. On the other hand, if a great amount of lawn is left, remember that it will need mowing frequently. This will take up a great deal of spare time. A pool surrounded by tiles or artificial grass might be a better investment if all the family loves swimming. Include the whole area. Many people only concentrate on landscaping the front yard and all the junk is kept in the back. But the back is mostly where the family gathers for games and relaxation. Backyards are more private and safer than front yards. So jazz up that backyard too, and it will be a pleasure to go out there. Remember to add a little pizzazz to that side area too. You want the whole outside area to look good, not just the front. Remember the climate. Choosing a garden landscape design that makes great use of water features and bog plants does not make sense if the climate is arid. Bog or water plants will not grow in a dry climate, even if you do have access to enough water. Instead, choose a landscape design to match the climate with plants that are known to do well there. That is not to say that with careful planning and foresight an area that is a little more unusual could not be created. Many people have created a garden that is an oasis in a dry area by carefully conserving the water that is available. Drip irrigation systems deliver a small amount of water to each plant that is often enough because it goes straight to the roots without any runoff or evaporation to waste it. Remember the boundaries. The landscape designer should use specific means to define the boundary of the garden, whether that is a fence, a hedge, or a border of rocks or even flowers. Skipping this important element often makes the garden seem cluttered and unorganized. But estate boundaries should also be considered. Planting trees near to boundaries that will grow tall and become a hazard to the neighbor's property will not foster good relations. It is not only overhanging branches that should be watched for, but invading roots that can damage paths and water pipes. Tree roots can often keep growing meters away from the tree. To come up with an outstanding garden, knowledge of these common landscaping problems is imperative. Good planning will ensure that landscaping plans can go ahead successfully, and everyone will be able to enjoy the result.
This one is the
Yeah, so yeah, that was about the mistakes. Some of them I've not mentioned here, but I'm sure it is now clear to you. Some of the mistakes you should avoid. And yeah, I think I'm coming towards the end of the lecture. And I think I would like to stop there for today. And yeah, just in the next lecture, God willing, I want you to go and think through this topic, and then we're going to have a discussion next week when we resume this lecture. Yeah, and I'm sure you'll be more knowledgeable then. You realize it's a field that we can't just discuss and finish in one day. The other thing is we are going to have a CAT on Wednesday, God willing, SMR 410, yeah, 410, nature-based tourism. So I'm going to look at what you've chosen. I'm saying this so that everybody attends the lecture. Everybody should attend the lecture. So let all your friends know that they should attend the lecture. I'm going to keep checking on the attendance who is in. So read your paper and read similar papers